All right, so we are back for part two of this edition of Weekly Crossbar. Ellis Joshua and Coach Wink. And Coach Wink just kind of picking up where we left off, talking about the Ward Melville Garden City game from Saturday. So we spent some time talking about Garden City as they got that win 12-7. But as we were watching that game, we were saying that that score could have been a lot bigger in favor of Garden City if not for Jason Biondi in the net for Ward Melville. He kept them in that game, and he finished that game with, I believe, 15 saves.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I remember early on, I looked at you and go, this game could be 13-4 right now. And it was like 7-4.
Yeah,
The kid was standing on his head. There was a couple opportunities. I thought at one point it got really close. What did it get to like 7-5 or it got to like a two-goal difference, right?
yeah, yeah. I believe it was, yeah, I think it was seven, might have even been 7-6, I think, actually.
Wow. That game never felt that close. I mean, the Ward Melville kids fought hard.
Big
I thought
time.
Louis Monteleos,
Yeah,
Monteleos,
Montelesi, the sophomore.
I
Yup.
thought he had a couple nice goals, and the kids play hard for Melville. Obviously, they got such an incredible history, and they're very well coached. I think Garden City, if they play to the best of their ability with the coaching staff and defense that they play, I don't know too many. I mean, we're covering a game. I'm not going to ruin it. I don't want to talk about who they're playing, but I'm very interested to see how the game. It's one of our games of the week, I believe, right?
Yeah. Let's just say it's sooner rather than later.
It's coming up, and I'm very curious to see how that game goes. Um, Garden City, just physically, man, these kids are they're big, strong, athletic kids. You know what I mean? And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that comes down to because a lot of them play football and they're in the weight room and dedicate themselves to staying in shape, and they're just so disciplined. I mean, I think they had four or five coaches on the sideline. I saw Coach Rogler, the JV coach, running the box. I saw Coach Holman and Coach Jacovina coaching each side of the ball. And obviously Coach Fennell is the patriarch of this program now. And I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I can see them playing up at Hobart come June 13th, 14th weekend. I could see it.
Well, they're definitely looking to flip the script this year after last year's very rare early exit in the playoffs in the semifinals, the county semis.
Yeah, when they lost to Manhasset, I mean.
Yeah. Oh, also, too, by the way, we didn't mention from the Ward Melville GC game, the sophomore, Braden Robertiello.
Oh, he played awesome.
Yeah, he was great.
He played awesome, that kid. I didn't even realize. I mean, because we knew him as a faceoff kid, but obviously he's not getting much burn there with having Cascadin going 80%. But that kid was a force offensively.
He was 2-4.
Yeah, he was awesome. I'm telling you, they're
Yeah.
rolling guys out of you, and you're like, who's this kid? Who's this kid? Who's this kid? It's great.
Yeah.
We got the roster because the numbers change every year with these guys. Because I love it. They
Yeah.
give seniority to the seniors. So when the
Yeah,
seniors
it makes
graduate,
sense.
the younger kids want their numbers back and they get their numbers. But
Yeah.
yeah, GC is an exciting team to watch this year. I'm very curious to see, if they fulfill, obviously their goals. Because every year, these top programs, the Garden Cities, the Cold Spring Harbors, the Manhassets, the Ward Melvilles, the Northports now, their
Yeah,
goals
the
are to win the
Hills.
state championship. Their goals
Yeah,
aren't to win a sectional championship.
right.
Uh,
Yeah, ultimate
we'll
goal.
talk. We'll talk about a few teams that might get in their way, but that was an interesting game. And I know I had to go because I don't know. Oh, I had my sister's 50th Saturday night, but you went and got to see East Islip play Wantagh.
Yeah. So that was the nightcap on Saturday. So that was a battle between two reigning county champions from last year, East Islip and Suffolk B and Wantagh and Nassau C. So that game, so East Islip, they actually jumped out to a 3-0 lead. So for a second there, it was looking like, oh, okay, this game this game could be a blowout in favor of the home team, East Islip, jumping out to a 3-0 lead. But then really from that point on, there was a point where Wantagh, they outscored East Islip. I think it was 9-2 because it went from 3-0 East Islip to then at one point it was 9-5 Wantagh. And so like the game really just kind of completely flipped. So I believe after the first quarter it was 4-4, but then it just really flipped in favor of Wantagh, and that's another team where they have a lot of talent, especially offensively, between the two Martinis, Dylan Martini in the senior class, then Luke Martini, who's only a freshman. You got Devin Pacione Jr. Going to Villanova. Like they have a ton of talent. Joe Nicholson, like they can really run up the score from an offensive standpoint. So so Luke Martini, he was 4-1 in that game. Devin, he was 3-2. Dylan, he scored 4 goals. Also, Matt Giacobello was 2-1. Nicholson was 2-1. And in the net, Gianni Passaro, he had 15 saves. But um, but yeah, Wantagh ended up winning that one relatively handily, 16-10.
Yeah, I was not predicting that. I gave
No.
East Islip the edge going in. They got a few of their kids back from the parochials, and I thought that would make the difference on the defensive end. But Wantagh obviously is an offensive juggernaut, so I'm very curious to see our game of the week next week because, as we mentioned earlier, that's going to be very interesting seeing that offensive firepower against the Trojans defense. You know what it is though? Facing off. That's where the Trojans, right? Is there a face-off kid on the island as good as Kiskaden? Probably just the
Oh,
St. Anthony kid, Johnson. And
yeah,
Ball, the
Robbie
Chaminade kid.
Johnson, Quinn Ball, Nico Geekus. There's a handful of good Fogos on the island. Well,
That would be an interesting non-leaguer, Hills and GC.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that when we were talking about Garden City. I was thinking, boy, I would love to see that team play Hills. They are playing Northport this year, Garden City, that is. And they played them last year too.
Yeah.
So they did have the upper hand last year. But I
I'm
guess
very curious to see how that Garden City Wantagh game turns out.
yeah, I guess spoiler alert. Anyway.
Spoiler alert. No spoiler.
Anyway,
So that was
um
Saturday. Sunday we had the day off, right? You know, it's the high holy day.
this is true. This is true.
Not this Sunday. We're working this Sunday.
Yeah, we'll be out there. We'll be out in the fields this upcoming Sunday. We won't
Yeah.
say where we're going, but the team will know because they're probably the only team playing on Sunday. So so they'll know. Plus I
But
already spilled the beans. I ran into someone. So I already
that's
spilled.
okay. That's okay. But you know the irony there?
What's that?
The team we're covering is a parochial team and it's Sunday.
Yeah, it's the holy day. Yeah, you're not supposed to be playing on Sunday. What's going on there?
Well, not if you can say that the stadium that you're playing at is like a church.
True.
So the facility is like a church. The stadium is like a church. So I think, and it's named after the Italian saint Marco Battaglia. I don't know if you know that,
I did not know that.
who was a famous Rutgers football player. So the game will be held at Rutgers. But we'll
Nice.
let everybody that's listening to this podcast tune in to the LALJ story on Sunday to see where the Where's Waldo or the Where's Ellis saga as we're at Marco Battaglia Fields.
I can't wait for that.
So Monday, which was yesterday, we covered 2 games, but we had staff at 3 games.
This is true.
So why don't you tell everybody about where we were and where our crew was?
Yeah, so we'll start off where you and I were yesterday. So we were back at Syosset High School, this time for the girls. in a Class A showdown against Massapequa, and boy, was that game a shootout. We knew very early in that game, like, okay, this is going to be one of those games where you're just going to see a number of goals. Like this game won't have any shortage of offense. So Pequa and Syosset, they played to an overtime game actually. So the game went into OT, and in overtime, after Pequa won the opening draw, they called timeout, and then out of the timeout, it was the senior Paige Gargiulo scoring the game winner to give Massapequa a 15-14 overtime win over Syosset in a game that was really, really back and forth. I mean, at one point, Syosset, I believe they were up by two goals, but then so was Pequa, I believe, at one point as well. So like that game was really back and forth. Two teams that kind of seemed, at least the last couple times that we've covered them, they've really played a pretty even game because it was pretty much the same thing last year, except Syosset won by a goal last year. But that's a good win for Pequa to open up league play to start the season in Class A because they could see each other again in the playoffs for sure.
Yeah, that was a game where I think defense was optional. It didn't seem like early on in the game. It's funny because they tightened up in the fourth quarter, the teams.
Yeah, they did.
I
They
was very
did.
curious why nobody went to a zone because they couldn't cover each other. The offense was so talented, they couldn't cover each other. I mean, between Syosset's, Stadler, Shaughnessy, the kid Chuns,
Yeah, Chon Silvera.
Silvera. I mean, and then you go to the other side, Gargiulo, Gillis, Hoffman. I got to tell you something. The kid Hoffman is the perfect fit for the Hopkins offense. I think I was saying that to you on the sideline.
Hmm.
I think Coach McCormick is going to love coaching this kid in his offense because she is a total floor general.
Yeah, very early on in that game, she was kind of orchestrating and initiating the offense. And she was 1-5. She had 5 assists in that game.
Yeah, and Gillis and uh, Page.
Yeah,
I
Gilson
thought
guard
played.
Paige
Who else? Oh,
Gargiulo.
what's her name? Appleton.
Yeah, Savannah Appleton. She was 3-2.
She has the perfect name for a feeder, though. Right? Don't we call assists apples? I mean, they
We
do
were
in
talking about that
basketball.
yesterday. Yup.
So I'm telling you, man, I thought she was awesome. I thought it was, like I like offense, so I enjoyed the game immensely. It could have went either way. I guess winning the
Yeah.
draw and the kid Shaughnessy, who's going to Michigan, is an absolute stud. Um,
Yeah, Julie Shaughnessy.
Stadler's,
She was
Stad,
4-3.
I think Stadler, Silvera, Kaplan, they got 327s that are all going to be heavily recruited this year coming from
Mm-hmm.
Syosset. The freshman who I had never seen before. What's Chun's first name? Peyton?
Peyton. Yeah, Peyton Chunts.
I thought she played really well. The lefty, they got a lot of lefties. I would use those lefties more in more of like a box formation, three on the left side. I thought sometimes they had Chun's on the right side, which I thought was, didn't utilize her talents enough. Keep those three on the left side, and then if you can get Shaughnessy top side, I mean that kid's an athlete. So
Hmm.
I thought at the end of the day, either team could have won that game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that was the way it was going. It was a flip of the coin game. I mean, we said at one point that we could see it just coming down to who had the ball last. And in overtime, like Piqua, they were the only team to possess the ball. They
Yeah.
won the game on their first offensive possession of overtime.
Yeah, I would have liked to seen one of those teams go into a zone defensively to try to just mix it up a little bit. That would I think would have helped either team in that case. Um,
Yeah, that was also too the first IG live of the season.
yes, yes, and we did have some good interaction with all our friends out there.
Yeah, that was fun. I always love going in Instagram live.
Yeah, it is fun. It's fun to see all the kids as they're coming out of their practices or games or on their buses, and they get the opportunity to watch a thriller in Manila, a thriller in Woodbury. And then our girl Jill went to a pretty good one goal game, right?
Yeah, we had Jill. She was covering the St. Dom's Bethpage game. That was up at Center Island actually. But um but yeah, that was a 9-8 win for St. Dom's. So St. Dom's getting the one goal victory. I saw on the stories the POGs from that game, Lily Di Natale, the sophomore, and then Marlo Knox, the junior, committed to FSU. So
Okay. Marla making a little noise as she doesn't move zip codes, but moves schools from Oyster Bay.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna have to set up something on our website like a transfer portal, but I have a rule. See, I don't like the way they do it in college because if you notice, they did it during the final, like during the
Yeah,
March Madness.
during the tournament, you have players in the portal.
Yeah, I don't like that. What you do is season ends, so the last game is June 13th, June 14th. We'll open the transfer portal on June 15th.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you play out the season with your current team before entering the
Yeah,
portal.
exactly. Then people could be throwing you some big checks, to get you to move schools. You know what I mean? That's when the big money comes out to get that stud lacrosse player to go from one school to the other. But public to public, you got to live in the district. Public to private, you can live anywhere.
Yeah, you don't have to move. You just change schools.
Exactly. So that gives the edge to the privates.
Yeah.
Definitely gives the edge to the privates. I'm very curious to see where the money's flowing at those private schools. Those that they're setting up their coalitions. Where's that coming from? The boosters? Where's it coming? Is it God? These parochials getting money from God?
Yes.
You think God roots more for the parochial schools than the public schools?
I think God has bigger fish to fry.
Than
And
than boys and girls lacrosse on Long Island?
yes. Yeah, something tells me God has bigger things to deal with.
I don't know. I think God's a lacrosse fan. You know?
I think it's I think it's down like way down the list. I'm not saying he doesn't like lacrosse. I just think there's other priorities.
Okay. All right. But we'll
We'll
set up
handle
that
the
transfer
lacrosse for
portal.
God.
What's that?
We'll handle the lacrosse for God.
Oh, that's true. He leaves it to Ellis Joshua. You're his disciple. You're a disciple. And my Jewish name is Moish, so I'm Moses. I
Oh,
haven't
there you
parted
go.
these yet though, but I'm working on it. All right, so that pretty much wrapped. Oh, last game
Well,
we were not there, but Ronnie was there.
yeah, we had our guy Ron Woodhall on site at Manhasset to cover the Cold Spring Harbor Manhasset boys game. Cold Spring Harbor getting the win 9-8. And so this is another year where these teams played to a one goal game because that was the case last year with Manhasset coming out on top. But this year, Cold Spring Harbor, they flipped the script and they get the 9-8 win after coming up short just a couple days ago against Horace Greeley 9-8. So good bounce back. Good bounce back for the Seahawks, and they're now 2-1 on the season.
Coach Bond doesn't lose too many games in a row.
No, not at all. And I know last year their record was very good in those close games. Like three goals or less. Their record was very good. So they know how to win the close ones for sure.
Yeah, a
And they
little, a
always
little,
rely
a
on their
little
defense.
irony. I mean, Cold Spring up at Manhasset is definitely a rivalry game. Would you agree?
Yes, yes, 100%.
I mean, I know they're not in the same conference anymore, but back in the day they used to be, and it was a big rivalry game. And so the game means a lot to the boys. They all know each other. Nobody really knows who Horace Greeley is but me. And
Yeah, I know.
it was
Yeah,
my high school rival, so I'm very
it's
upset.
personal for you.
Very personal. Coach Bond and I will have to. Matter of fact, Coach Bond and I are gonna have to have a talk about that game because you can't lose to Horace Greeley. I don't think I've ever lost to Horace Greeley in lacrosse. Just throwing that out there. They weren't very good though when I was in school. They're much better now. But good job by Coach Bond. I mean, he's racking up those wins. If you go on, have you ever been on and seen the most wins by high school coaches? There's a website. I think they do a good job. Lax numbers, and they have all that information.
Oh, I gotta check that out.
Check it out. The most wins by any high school coach in the history of high school boys lacrosse is the West Jenny coach, Mike Messier. He has over 800 wins.
Wow. My
And
good.
Dennis Bond, who is probably up there as far as active, is pushing like over 350.
Mm.
So it just shows you. And Dennis has been coaching, I think he's been coaching well over 20 years now. We got to keep Dennis around. I want Dennis to break Messier's record. So how many more he needs? He needs 450. Let me just do the math. 20 a year, 22 years. He's got to coach. He's gonna have to coach he's gonna have to coach till he's almost 80.
Oh no.
Yeah, we can do it. We can make it. Worst comes to worst,
I
we'll
mean,
look him up.
if he keeps racking up state championships, like there's no incentive to leave. So that's good. Just keep winning those chips.
He's got a big one. He's got a big one this year. This would be four in a row if he wins this year,
Yes. Yes, this would be four straight.
which means every kid that are seniors would have won every year that they played.
Yeah. Yeah, if you were on varsity as a freshman, then yeah, you got four rings if they
Yeah,
win it this year.
yeah, like Bauer and Bruno and the lefty Burns, all those kids. Four rings. That's crazy.
That's a dynasty right there.
That's like the old UConn women's hoop teams back in the day.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. All right. Well, that's a good wrap up for the first 10 days of the lacrosse season. Great job with the top 25, Z. I saw you break that yesterday. That was getting some love.
Yeah, yeah, I think we should definitely try to do that on a consistent basis, because a lot of things will fluctuate week to week, depending on who beats who, certain matchups. So I think it's good if we kind of keep that going. It's fluid, as they say. It's very fluid.
All right. Each one of us at the end of our podcast every week has to pick a team that surprised them this week. I'll I have one that surprised me. I'm very proud of them on how they played, and they had a really good start to their season. And but surprised me. I'm not going to tell you who it is. I want to see who yours is, and I'm curious. I'm not going to tell you who it is, so that way if we come up with the same one, we do. I already have. I'm writing mine down right here. All right, you go. You ready, or you want me to say mine first?
Um, I mean, you can say yours first. Mine is kind of one that we've already talked about, but so I guess
No,
I,
you say
I'll,
yours. I wrote mine
yeah,
down. Go ahead.
yeah, I'll go first. I'm sticking with the Sachem North boys with that
Nice.
win against Syosset. I'm sticking with Sachem North, and they're in our top 25 now after that win. So we dropped that yesterday, and they're in the top 25. So I'm gonna stick with Sachem North.
Interesting. And this other team also entered the top 25, but on the other gender, and that's Eastport South
Oh,
Manor.
yeah.
A little shout out to Coach Becky Thorne for that big win against Syosset, bringing her into the top 25 and showing why she's a state champion coach. That was a big win and putting up 12 goals. So proud of her. She's usually winning games 4-3,
This is true. That
but
is true. 12 goals. That's a coming out party for ESM.
100%. So the Sharks and what is Sachem North? So they the Arrows?
Sachem North Arrows.
Okay. I guess they can't be the Indians anymore, so they're the Arrows.
I've known them as the Arrows.
Oh, they've always been the Arrows.
As far as I know, but I don't know what the deal is with these name changes. So I'll
Because
just I'll
Massapequa was still the Chiefs, by the way.
look. I'm sticking with what I know. If they still call them the Chiefs over there, I'll call them the Chiefs. If they're calling them something else, just let me know.
Manhasset's no longer the Indians. They're now set.
All right, then I will call them set. Or
All right.
I'll just say Manhasset. I'll
Yeah.
just do that.
Yeah. They didn't do a good job coming up with a new, logo. I'm disappointed in that creativity. Not a very creative town.
It's
You got to
okay.
be more creative than
They're working
set,
on it. They're
right?
working on it. It's a work in progress.
Okay, we should do it. We should do a poll
I'm gonna
to
cut them some
change it
slack.
on the logos. By the way, the committed event that we're doing this year, we just come out with our unis, and they're sick.
Oh, I can't wait to see those.
I'm going to share them with you. I think we should start bringing in some creativity to these podcasts and bringing up some of the great things that are going on in the lacrosse world. So I think next week we'll bring that in when as I get our creative team to build around this wonderful crossbar weekly podcast. We got to do it weekly though. So what's today? Is today Tuesday? Tuesday at 1 o'clock. Fair?
Well, we can try for that. I think we're gonna have to. I think we're gonna have to kind of go week by week, because I'll be honest, I like doing it on the Fridays, to be honest. But I think we had to do something for the first like 10 days or so where we've covered some games. But I like Fridays, but that's just me. But
Okay, so what's next Friday? The 11th? That's my brother's birthday.
so that's what we got to do. We got to drop an episode for his birthday. That's your gift to
We'll do an
him.
Uncle Richie special.
Exactly.
All right, cool. So we'll do an Uncle Richie on April 11th. He's turning 60.
Very nice.
He doesn't look a day over 59.
Oh, come on. Come on.
All right, let's say goodbye to everybody.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of Weekly Crossbar. Ellis Joshua and Coach Wing signing off. Thanks for everyone that tuned in.